Hey guys, how's it going? Oh, hold on 1 second. That was not an elaborate ploy to abandon you. I promise. Had a little feedback here in the studio. I've got my co-host set up across the way over there. Hi, everybody. How are you? Thanks for joining me. Tonight, we're going to be talking about my upcoming documentary, Surface, Before Me, My Altar. I have collected and organized my notes about the Smithland area in Kentucky, as well as the book at Adorpa, and some of the weird and interesting things that that have come up in my research and digging into different aspects of this whole story. Some of it's pretty wild. One thing I just found out last night, which was kind of a weird sync for me. Anyway, we'll get into all that. I'm going to bring my special co-host in. And if you've been following me on social media in the last week, you have already met Steve. This is Freaky Steve. I've got him set up over there on the Spirit Box with our portal that we built. I think we did either a stream or a video for that back several months ago. You will not be able to pick up what he's saying, but I can hear it. So we'll see what's going on with Steve, and we'll check in with him. He's just hanging out over there in the altar space. Freaky Steve Cam. Yes, he's great. First off, thank you, everybody, for your continued support, not just in this project, but listening to the new season. I have a couple of fresh episodes on their way very soon. I would say to expect the early release for the next episode next week by Tuesday evening at the latest. And while we're talking about Tuesday evening, I will be busy Tuesday evening. I'm very proud to join Adam and Surfiel on Conspiranormal. I love their show. They're both super great guys. I've met up with them a couple of times now, and we're going to talk about what I'm talking about tonight. So we're going to go over the same things. This is kind of going to be a little bit of a dry run for what I'm going to be talking about on Conspiranormal. Obviously, there will be no questions other than the questions that come in from the live chat, which I do have pulled up in the comments over here. And if you do have any questions while we're going over this stuff, say something, and I will stop and read it, and we'll address it ASAP. The Conspiranormal booking is something I've been looking forward to for about, 5 or 6 weeks now. Really looking forward to getting this stuff out to a huge crowd, because you guys are a great crowd, and I love all of you. And the podcast crowd is a great crowd, and I love all of them, and I know you're both. The Conspiranormal crowd is huge. They have a huge following, and it's going to be a really good opportunity for me to promote the future documentary, which I am still working on. Get off my back, Matthew. And also just the show. And maybe we can grow this crowd a little bit in that process. Get some more people in here on these chats. Somebody was excited. I'm going to get up one more time, and I'm going to move the K2 meter into sight because it's currently invisible. So I'm going to take myself out. We'll bring Steve in. I think that's better. Sorry, I had to make a couple of adjustments. Yeah, so like I said, I've got my notes here. I've collected and organized. Hello, Steve. I've collected and organized a lot of different things, and I think a semi-intelligible way that I can convey, albeit without narrative, because there's a lot of just random things that have popped up. I want to start. Obviously, everybody knows my lucid dream story, and the whole point, the whole purpose and drive of this project has been to follow that thread and see why I was pulled where I was pulled. So I'm not going to rehash that for this crowd, but I do plan on going over it one more time in the Conspiranormal interview and presenting that to them and getting their feedback too, because I always enjoy the feedback from that experience. So I want to hit that with them. I will not cover that tonight, but I will address any questions that you may have, lingering questions. I know that you've all been aware of this lucid dream story and this project for a while, so I'll spare you that. We will start. I don't know where I want to start. I will start with the Smithland, Kentucky research. So in Smithland, Kentucky, it's a setting for this incredibly weird lucid dream that I had. And whenever I found it with my friends, a couple of years later in real life, it became a real driving force. So whenever Nathan and Darian and Kyle put out Pennyroyal, and I caught that tag in the last episode about Aleister Crowley being in Livingston County, Kentucky, and Smithland being in Livingston County, Kentucky, and the Edidorpa connection, I've had to take a step back and look at the whole picture with Smithland. One of the things from Edidorpa that is explicitly mentioned is they stayed the night with Joseph Watts when they get to Smithland, Kentucky. So the first thing I did was look up Joseph Watts. Joseph Watts was born in 1794 and died in 1869. He came to Smithland, Kentucky as a teenager, I believe, and became very wealthy for the area. He actually bought one of the historical properties in the town, and I've been by it, and it's really cool to look at. I haven't been in. I've seen it, a handful of times. One of the weird things, and we'll double back to this in a minute because there's a weird name synchronicity with a lot of the players in this story. But one of the weird name things was Joseph Watts' wife was named Lucinda Watts. One of their children, William Courtney Watts, in 1897, writes a romanticized version of his parents' life called The Chronicles of a Kentucky Settlement. It's kind of hard to come by, and I think Sarah will probably have a really hard time finding it up in Canada. It was not a huge commercial success or anything like that, but you can find copies of it. And you don't know how much of it's true, but you get a good background on this Joseph Watts character. Why he's important to Llewellyn Drury / the man who did it / John Uri Lloyd. You really have to understand the Edidorpa thing to understand what I'm even talking about there. So we'll have to explain that further detail later on. But I think everybody here is aware. The man who did it enlists Llewellyn Drury to write down this manifesto of his stories and to publish it 30 years later. And he can add illustrations if he would like. And when it comes time to publish it, he backs out. He's like, no, I'm not going to publish it. And he hands it to John Uri Lloyd. John Uri Lloyd gets the illustrations from J. Augustus Knapp, and they put the book out. Here we are. At the time, it was a pretty successful book. John Uri Lloyd is an interesting cat. He's a brilliant pharmacist that never went to college. He and his brothers had a very successful pharmaceutical business. It's an interesting dude. I have another one of his books I haven't had a chance to read yet. It's called Our Willie, and it's some sort of Western novel. The name of the book alone is definitely the only reason I own it. And just to see if there's any other weird things that could be real or could be made up, because Edidorpa, I'm not sure. Obviously, as a sane person, I have a hard time rationalizing the Hollow Earth theory. It's a lot of fun, and it'd be great if it was true, and it's not altogether unplausible, but I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know where I really fall. I mean, I sit here and talk about it all the time. I'm making a documentary about it, but I'm not going to lie and say I totally believe it. I don't totally believe it. I believe it's possible. So that's Joseph Watts. They stay with Joseph Watts. He's a real person in the time period in the area. And I have visited his grave. I have shared those images. I visited there several times. The tombstone of him and his wife both are on paranormalpatio.com/Edidorpa. The pictures are there. And some other pictures from Smithland as well. The Masonic Hall Federal Commissary Building Historical Site. This is the Masonic Hall, the old Masonic Hall in Smithland that is built 2 houses away, 2 buildings away from the house that I had the lucid dream about. And finding that was weird also. And the sync between the Freemasons and Edidorpa, which we'll get into in a minute, makes this all that much more weird. Now, in the time that Edidorpa takes place, this building did not exist. There was no Masonic Federal Commissary building. In 1844, Smithland gets a charter for a Masonic lodge. The building is built and or commandeered, taken over in 1861. 1861, it's used for a commissary for Civil War. After the war, it's used as a Masonic lodge again until 1887, at which point it becomes a church until 1913, and then back to a Masonic lodge until 1963, when a new lodge was constructed, and this building was made historical in 1998. So we have talked with Nathan about Aleister Crowley being in Livingston County, Kentucky at the time that he's collecting all of these Freemasonic secrets and rituals. And unfortunately, I don't know where the Masonic Lodge existed during the time that Crowley would have been there. So it was a church then. Clearly they were still there. Did they share it? I don't know. It's lost to history. But it will be interesting to maybe someday find that. I mean, I'm really curious as to where the Masonic Lodge existed at that time, if it did. The charter has been intact, though, since 1844. Speaking of Aleister Crowley, his family connection to Livingston County and to Smithland was something I did not expect to find. And this is not new information, but the mother of Aleister Crowley, her grandfather had a son from another marriage, a previous marriage. And so this would be her uncle, Crowley's great uncle, William Bishop, decides to leave Somerset, UK, to come to Illinois or Kentucky, and meets and marries one Mary Martin of Golconda, Illinois, nestled heartily in the stems and forest of Shawnee, southern Illinois. Beautiful area. William and Mary have a few children, a few infant deaths, and they didn't have a good life. William Bishop dies in 1899, which would have been prior to Crowley being here. William David Bishop, his son, Crowley's second cousin, grew up in Livingston County, was elected the Livingston County Sheriff on 2 separate terms in 1905 and 1913, and at the time of his death was a U.S. Deputy Marshal. Most of the bishops are buried in northern Livingston County in a cemetery called Love's Cemetery. Please do not share that information. That is going to be private to the Patreon group only. Sarah found the book for only $42. Added it to my list. That's awesome. I mean, I don't know if I'd pay $42 for it. It's probably not very good, but if you're into the whole Edidorpa thing, it's interesting. One of the things that Nathan and I both found immediately after our conversation in November of 2020 was this Red Hole iron furnace, this Red Hole mine in Livingston County. and the associated goat monster. This demon that they unearthed by burning too far and opening the doors of hell. The goat man of Livingston County appears in Barton Nunnally's Inhumanoids. Allegedly, in 1840s, the Red Hole Iron Furnace, named for the rust-colored soil and quicksand surrounding it, was in full swing. And right before it closed down, there are no references anywhere else, but Nunnally says some of the workers mysteriously died. So some of the people that are burning this iron furnace mysteriously die, and then this goat man appears, right? So the goat man is seen well into the 70s, and according to the source that I talked to, it's more of a local urban legend. No one has any, I don't think, any evidence of it. And the general, like, town-wide belief about the goat man of Livingston County is that it was sort of started to keep people out of the woods and away from moonshine stills. So, maybe it's all made up, and, Nunnally didn't know the difference. I mean, he had so much stuff in that book that, he he didn't research any of it. You know what I mean? This is like, I'm just taking every story I get and I'm putting it in here. Sorry if there was a click on the microphone. The goat man of Livingston County, it's known. It's known by the local residents to this day. My source that I talked to that contacted me after I released episode 6 of Paranormal Patio, which is the Hellier Edidorpa Synchronicity episode. It's only on YouTube and on the Patreon archives right now. That episode came out, and someone reached out to me and they said, I'm from this area. Whenever I was a kid, I went to these stone steps that led to a wall with carvings in the wall, and left no contact information. It was a comment on the website to that blog post about the episode. And so it took me months before I tracked this person down, and I tracked him down. And so, yes, Matthew, the mind was taking its due. I think so. The dew of the moonshiners. Mountain Dew. The guy gets back to me, and we have about an hour and a half long conversation about Smithland, about occult stuff in the area, about... Sorry, Steve was mumbling. Keep an eye on that K2 also, by the way. About the historical significance of Smithland. And we talked, like I said, about an hour and a half, maybe a little longer. And he tells me this story about the Knights of the Golden Circle. And I knew what they were, but I knew nothing about them. And he tells me about the Jesse James connection. And there's really good coverage of that in the newest episode of Pennyroyal Season 2, featuring Matthew Bird. The guy ghosts me the next day after this conversation about the Knights of the Golden Circle. Conversation went a little like this. He asked me if I'd ever heard of them, and then warned me about digging around in Smithland. He said he found a lapel pin, posted it on Facebook, asking if anyone that he knew what it was from and if they could tell him anything about it. And he gets these 3 dudes show up at his house a couple days later, and they explain that it's a lapel pin for members of the Knights of the Golden Circle, that he should not be talking about things he doesn't understand. They didn't threaten him, but they were threatening, if that makes sense. They were intimidating. And they took the pin and they left. So the guy, after that, I think he either thinks I'm one of these Knights of the Golden Circle members that are holdouts or this new wave, and that he's afraid now that he's talked about it that I'm coming to get him, so he won't talk to me. Or he's just realized how weird I am. I don't know. I've been ghosted. I wonder, I'm reading about Ozark magic, how people were very secretive about their practice. Could the goatmen be tulpas created by power doctors / grannies to protect the land? I have a theory that these old-timey gold caches from Civil War era and before, that these groups that were hiding this gold were protecting it with some sort of magic, some sort of magical power of protection. And I wonder about the cryptid sightings that are in clusters in areas like this, if that's not just a sign that there's gold buried. You know what I mean? I think it'd be interesting to track that with known found caches and paranormal experiences that have been reported in those areas. Southern Illinois is ripe with Bigfoot sightings, and in the Shawnee National Forest in Southern Illinois, there exists a Knights of the Golden Circle meeting place. It's part of the Garden of the Gods trail system now. But back in the day, before the national park was there, the location is incredibly remote. And so I think that this area, the ties between Knights of the Golden Circle and Bigfoot sightings could be a connection. I need to dig more into the Knights of the Golden Circle, I guess. It's not been a focus of my investigation by any means. But there have been some synchronicities that have popped up with Nathan. Obviously, with the newest episode of Pennyroyal, some of the things that we were finding around the same time came from conversations like that. The documentary will have video of that Knights of the Golden Circle meeting place. It's a really interesting place. To dig into the Edidorpa stuff now, and I had mentioned earlier about the weird parallels in names between players in this game. Okay. This is kind of where it starts, and I know that these names are old-timey names. They're not popular names now, but in the 1800s, these names were not uncommon. Not that they're altogether uncommon now. The story of I Am the Man begins as the story of William Morgan. It's never explicitly implied. The name is never given. The location, the setting of the delivery of this narrative by I Am the Man is never given. But it's William Morgan. And one of the things about William Morgan being the center of this is that John Uri Lloyd's mother grew up 45 minutes away from William Morgan's abduction. Okay. She would have been like 2 years old, I think. If I'd have to go back and double check, but at any rate, she would have grown up hearing about this. This was a big deal at the time. And so if we accept at face value, this is entirely a fictional novel written by John Uri Lloyd, the motivation to include the William Morgan story is not off base because of how much he would have heard about the Morgan affair and the connections that he had in his life tie into Edidorpa and the journey. And it's really interesting to look at those, and we will a little bit. So the names. I've teased this. William Morgan is married to Lucinda. Okay. Lucinda Morgan. William Morgan. William Morgan stays with Joseph Watts. Joseph Watts is married to Lucinda Watts. Okay. Joseph Smith, who creates the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Mormons. Joseph Watts, Joseph Smith, William Morgan, Lucinda Watts, and William Morgan, William Bishop, Aleister Crowley's uncle, great uncle. So a lot of weird names, okay? And also William Courtney Watts, Joseph and Lucinda Watts's son, who writes a book about him. Okay, so William Morgan, the thing I found that was really interesting last night is William Morgan and I have the same birthday, August 7th. He's a little older than I am, if he still exists in the Hollow Earth. But I found that synchronicity a little odd, that he and I share a birthday, and here I am researching all this. Morgan claimed to have been made a master mason while he was living in Canada, and he briefly attended a lodge in Rochester, New York. But in 1825, he receives the Royal Arch degree at Leroy's Western Star, chapter number 33, having declared under oath that he had previously received the 6 degrees that preceded it. Morgan then attempts to unsuccessfully establish and visit lodges across New York and chapters in Batavia. He's denied participation by members who disapproved of his character and even questioned his claims to Masonic membership. So Morgan finally announces he's going to publish an expose titled Illustrations of Masonry. That's incredibly critical of the Freemasons and reveals every secret that they have at the time in regards to their degree ceremonies in great detail. The book is available online to purchase, or if you're on Scribd, you can read it. That's where I read it. It's about 88 pages long. It's incredibly hard to read. It is not narrative in any way. It is direct transcripts almost of the things he's wishing to reveal. And it's written as if it were written, in the 1820s. So this book, Jason, if you can give me a general year of when Crowley possibly visited Masonic Lodge there in Kentucky, I can give it to my friend and maybe he'll locate where the lodge was. 1904, I believe, is when we're looking at. Anywhere from 1900 to 1912, Matthew. This whole deal with William Morgan publishing the book becomes known as the Morgan Affair. And it's a weird thing to think about now. But in the 1820s, there were growing concerns over the Freemasons and their influence on politics, especially at a national level, but also in local levels. And a lot of people were upset about the Freemasons taking over the country. On September 11th, a day that will live in infamy, but in 1826, William Morgan is arrested over a fine of $2 for a tavern bill. He is bailed out by his brother or a friend. I think actually it's the editor of the newspaper. He's arrested again, and the next day is bailed out by Freemasons who take him to the Fort Niagara area, and he's never seen again. That's real life William Morgan. If you believe that I Am the Man is William Morgan, and his story continues on from being abducted and taken to Niagara, that he exists for quite some time, exploring the inner universe. So William Morgan disappears. October 1827, a decomposed corpse washes up on the shores of Lake Ontario, and many presumed that it was Morgan's body, and the body was buried as his. However, the wife of a missing Canadian named Timothy Monroe she positively identifies the clothing that's on this William Morgan's body as the clothing that had been worn by her husband whenever he had disappeared. So is the body that of William Morgan? Is it that of Timothy Monroe? No one knows, really. There is no such thing as genetic testing. There's an interesting thing that William Morgan and Timothy Monroe both had 2 rows of teeth. So they were able to initially identify the body as William Morgan's because it had 2 rows of teeth. But now this woman from Canada says my husband also had 2 rows of teeth, top and bottom. I don't know how common that is nowadays. If you guys know of anyone with 2 rows of teeth, give me a shout out. One group of the Freemasons denied that Morgan was killed, alleging they had actually paid him $500 to leave the country. Morgan was reportedly seen later, including in other countries, but none of those reports were confirmed. Eventually, Eli Bruce, the sheriff of Niagara County and a Freemason, was removed from office and tried for his involvement in Morgan's disappearance. He served 28 months in prison after being convicted of conspiracy for his role in the kidnapping of William Morgan and holding him against his will before his disappearance. 3 other Masons, Lowton Lawson, Nicholas Chesabro, and Edward Sawyer, were convicted of taking part in the kidnapping and served sentences. Soon after Morgan disappears, the local newspaper publisher, David Miller, publishes Morgan's book, the expose, the illustrations of Masonry. It became a bestseller because the notoriety of the events of his disappearance and alleged murder, it became a hot button issue. And Miller never said Morgan had been murdered, but did say that he had been carried away. And again, I mentioned this happened 45 minutes from John Uri Lloyd's mother, who was 2 years old. Thurlow Weed comes out of this whole abduction, murder, Freemasonry thing and starts the anti-Masonic Party. It included notable names such as Millard Fillmore and former President John Quincy Adams, who was back in the Senate at the time. So that's basically the Morgan affair. Guy disappears, and we get this anti-Masonic Party, the first third-party political movement that is promptly ended. I don't know if people stopped being afraid of the Freemasons, if they gave up, admitted defeat, if they were all threatened. I don't know. A lot of the things carried on into other political movements later on in life, but it's a weird thing that I had no idea about until I started looking into Edidorpa. William Morgan's wife, Lucinda Morgan, marries a Mormon, George Harris, in 1830. They moved to the Midwest, and in 1837, it's widely believed that Lucinda Morgan Harris becomes Lucinda Morgan Harris Smith as the third wife of Mormon founder Joseph Smith, who Joseph Smith became a Mason in 1842. But his older brother was a Mason before him. His father, Joseph Smith Sr., was raised to the degree of Master Mason on May 7th, 1818 in Canandaigua, New York, which is just a hop, skip, and a jump away from Batavia, where William Morgan lived and was allegedly kidnapped by Freemasons. At the time, Joseph Smith Sr. was a Freemason in the area. It's interesting that his son would go on to marry the widow of the man abducted by the Freemasons. So, 1826, Joseph Smith is put on trial for lying about finding treasures, and you can dig into the Joseph Smith story on your own and what became the founding of Mormonism. He became a Mason in 1842, but I'm trying to remember when he was born. He was 21 whenever he was living in Palmyra, New York. and his brother was a Mason in Palmyra before him. Livingston County does not only exist in Kentucky, but Livingston County also exists in New York and exists right between Batavia and Canandaigua, the sites of Joseph Smith Sr. and William Morgan, which is another really interesting tie that William Morgan becomes I'm the Man in Edidorpa lore, but he's abducted by Freemasons and taken to Livingston County, but really came from Livingston County. Well, he was there when he was abducted. He wasn't born there. So the American Hotel becomes the host of the last Livingston County Lodge, and these Masons are meeting up here. The American Hotel is in Livingston County, New York. Still there. Still functioning, I believe. The Masons are meeting there, and they're noticing at their meetings, like an article of clothing will go missing. And this happens over and over and over. So these Masons that are here, that are being ran through and almost destroyed by this anti-Masonic party for their abduction, kidnapping, and illegal holding and murder of William Morgan, their stuff is being taken. Now, all at once, I think it was in a December meeting, they find all of these articles of clothing have been returned, all of them at once, in their meeting hall above the American Hotel. One thing about this is their clothing had all been infected with smallpox, and almost every Mason at this meeting would go on to contract smallpox. This is how deep the anti-Masonic movement was. They have busted up all of these lodges. They have moved all of these people out. They've got them secluded and hiding above the American Hotel in Livingston County, New York. And someone's taken their damn clothes and infecting them with smallpox. That's the anti-Masonic movement created by the abduction of William Morgan. And it's weird. It's a weird thing to think about now. We would not do this. That's chemical warfare, basically. It's biological warfare. That is terrorism, you know? So I don't know, man. That stuff's weird. Freaky Steve, what do you think about that stuff? Weird, right? Yeah. So the other piece of this puzzle with John Uri Lloyd and Llewellyn Drury is John Augustus Knapp, or Joseph Augustus Knapp, or J. Augustus Knapp. He illustrates the book Edidorpa, which is the first novel written by John Uri Lloyd, and many of his other works. Then he goes on to work with Manly P. Hall, and we've looked at the Knapp Hall tarot deck here in a live stream. And the artwork is awesome. And all of his artwork for Edidorpa was amazing. Amazing. So that's some of the research that I have dug up in relation to the Edidorpa story. Some weird stuff there. And my personal experiences, I think I've told all of these. I have the lucid dream about this town and this house. My friends and I find the house 2 years later. I find Hellier. I find Edidorpa. The map in Edidorpa points to Smithland, Kentucky. Before I had read the story, I saw the map. I'm like, Smithland, Kentucky? You know, holy shit. And so I decided to go back in August of 2020. Go to Smithland, see the house, see the Masonic Hall, visit Joseph Watts's grave in the Smithland City Cemetery. On my way down that time in August, Cave in Rock, Illinois, took my boys there for the first time. and there was someone doing a magical ceremony inside the cave. 3 people, which was fun to walk in on. I hadn't gotten into the magic stuff that much yet then. That was the trip in August. So I go back in March of 21 last year on my way down to Somerset to meet Nathan and Darian and Kyle and Kevin and Jessica. I stop and do a lot of the filming, the bulk of the filming. That trip visited the Iron Furnace historical site in the Shawnee Forest to get a rough idea for those who've never seen an iron furnace, what would have existed at the Red Hole mine. I visited Cave and Rock. I visited Love Cemetery for the first time. The graves of the bishops, Crowley's family there. Went to Smithland. Went to the house again. Went to the Masonic Lodge again. Went to the river. Went to the Smithland Cemetery again to Joseph Watts's grave. Went to what I believe to be if there's a Hollow Earth entrance in Livingston County, Kentucky, I went there. And if it's not the entrance to the Hollow Earth from Metadorpa and all this is made up, it was still cool to see it. Then I headed to Somerset on that trip. I've been back to Smithland again in September. I stopped on my way down to Nashville for Strange Realities in September. Back to the cemetery again. I feel like there's a time in between where I went back down as well and got more footage. Because I've been to the cemetery 4 times. It's scary there. Just how isolated it is. So there's one thing that I have to find or get to now. I mentioned the guy who sent me the comment on my website about Livingston County and these stone steps. He told me he had no idea where they were. I reached out to another contact I had made in Smithland, and she told me she knew of 2 of these sets of stairs. One of them they thought was to an old cellar, though, and I was like, I don't think that's it. That doesn't match what I've been told. So she said, there's another one, but you have to go across some farmland to get to it. And I said, well, I don't want to do that and get shot. You know what I mean? She said she would talk to her brother about taking me out there. So I do have to do that still, because I think that'd be great to include in the documentary. That will tie up the filming aspect of the on-location filming. It'll just be talking heads from then on that I have to finish up for Surface. Also on my way to Nashville is when I stopped and visited the Knights of the Golden Circle meeting place in Shawnee. I found out about it after I had already gotten back from Somerset in March. It's a weird place. That will be in the documentary. Everything I've mentioned so far will be in the documentary. I did not go to Smithland when I went to Somerset this last month for the Pennyroyal release party. I wanted to spend more time in Somerset and hang out with everyone there. I got to meet Josh Van Hook in person. I got to hang out with Adam and Surfiel, Recluse, and of course the Pennyroyal guys. Supposed to meet up with Matthew, who was frozen on his hill because the weather was garbage. The weather was garbage there for sure. Rough times. It's okay, Matthew. We'll meet up another time. Man, I think that's about all I have. I mean, the bulk of the story is my personal story of the lucid dreams that brought me to Smithland to begin with. And so hopefully with what I've said here, which has been 48 minutes, I think, and what I will tell a part of my story, I think it'll make for a pretty interesting episode of Conspiranormal. I'm looking forward to it for sure. And I hope that I get some feedback with some more people that know more about some of these things, which I know that I know Serfiel is going to know a lot about the Mormon stuff because I've heard him talk about it. I know Adam is going to know more about the Knights of the Golden Circle stuff because he's already brought up that he wants to talk about it. Yeah, it's going to be a good time. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, I think the weird thing is that William Morgan and I share the same birthday, and here I am following his potential footsteps into the entrance to the Hollow Earth in Livingston County, Kentucky. I will tell you guys this because you're here and your family, and I can trust you all that you will not go to this place and bother these people. The site to the entrance to the Hollow Earth in Livingston County, Kentucky, is southeast of Salem, Kentucky. It's on private property. Please do not bother the owners. The spring that comes through the entrance to the cave is called Puckett Spring. Puck, pan, pennyroyal, pizza, probability. Puckett Spring. Puck, Pan, Cernunnos, the Green Man. All this stuff just is all the same. The names, the location, Livingston County in New York, Livingston County in Kentucky, Williams and Josephs and Morgans and Lucindas, and it's nuts, man. It's nuts. Matthew, I like that our birthdays are 1 month apart as well. I have another friend who shares your birthday. An old friend. I don't really talk to very much anymore. But her birthday is a month after mine. Yes. Yeah. Do you guys have any questions? Anything for Steve that I can relay to him? I will be glad to talk to Steve for you. I'll unmute. I can't unmute him because the feedback is nuts. I'll try it. Steve, what do you think about all this stuff? Okay. Hey, Steve. What do you think about Joseph Smith? K2's moving. Hey, Steve. What do you think about Aleister Crowley? Hey, Steve. Matthew really wants your voice to sound like Jeff Peterson or on Craig Ferguson. Can you do that? Nope. Okay. Thanks a lot, Steve. You're doing a great job. We all love you. Okay, guys. That's going to wrap up the stream. Thanks for hanging out. Sorry about Steve. He is not very talkative, turns out. You know? I thought there'd be some energy attached to him because of how fond everyone was of him in the store. But nothing yet. I spent a good hour or so talking to Steve and didn't get anywhere at all. Next episode is going to be out next week. Friday publicly on the Patreon, Monday or Tuesday at the latest. Adam Taula joins me to interview a gentleman who worked in a haunted hospital in Utah. And I thought it'd be great to have Adam on because he's a paranormal investigator from Utah, and they actually don't live very far from one another, so it worked out really great. The episode after that will be with Steven Snyder, Recluse. Looking forward to that as well and getting those out there for you. So that's the next month or so. I'm going to try to talk to Kevin and Jessica about doing the March live stream, but we'll have info on that as we get it. Check me out. I don't know how long of a delay there are between episodes and recording for Conspiranormal, but I will be recording March 1st, Tuesday. So I'm looking forward to speaking with them and getting everybody's feedback from their side too. I will talk to you guys later. I love you all. Have a wonderful night. Go back and watch the Newkirks over there on Phenomenicon if that's your thing. And hey, stay weird, stay creepy, stay paranormal, keep it paranormal. All the lines are taken. I've got nothing. Peace.